An unusual issue has appeared in the hardcore wipe. As the traders open, many players are struggling, not with task rep or character level, but with trader spend requirements. Trader spend normally ranges from a total non-issue to a small hindrance at most in a regular wipe, but with the requirements skyrocketing, especially with Peacekeeper, my god, it's over 5 million rubles, today we'll be looking at ways to build this up for the lowest price. I'm going to try to cover as much stuff as I can today, however there's probably going to be lots of tips and hints that I haven't thought of, so go down and look in the comments because that's actually probably going to be a right gold mine on a video like this. If you have a tip that I don't mention, put it down in the comments so that everybody can benefit. This is also the lay of the land right now. These are the level 2 traders that we have, and so the next ones are highly expected to be Skier, Peacekeeper and Ragman in some particular order. Now you might want to start working on these, especially with Peacekeeper. As I said, he has an insane spend requirement, so you probably want to get this somewhat close before he opens because it's going to be a right slog to do it once he gets there. The second thing that I want to mention before we start properly is the whole concept of barters. So barters with trader spend work really nicely because what you do get is credited the full value of the barter and then you can sell that back to the trader. So for example, if we look at the PL15 pistol, and I made this mistake the other day, a chatter pointed it out to me. I had a vodka and I sold that to Prapor for I think about 10,000 rubles, but they pointed out basically what I could have done is I could have traded the vodka in for PL15 pistol with Prapor 2 and that would have given me the trader spend as if I'd bought a PL15 and then I could have sold the PL15 pistol back to Prapor and got the same value again. So you're basically doubling up anytime you do these barters, and we'll see a couple of them that are really important as we go through. So let's start with the easiest trader, which is Therapist. Therapist, basically you should try to avoid spending money with her as much as possible. The reason why it's so tempting is because in a normal wipe, she buys most things for the most money. If you go through on our search, which is really handy now because you can sell to the traders using the search, she buys meds for the highest price, she buys barter items for mostly the highest price, it depends, but Therapist is usually a good bet because she usually pays one of the most money for the things that she takes. The problem here is that although this is good for your actual cash balance, it doesn't really help with leveling up the traders because Therapist, ultimately, with the money that you get, you're probably going to be buying one of these lucky scav junk boxes at some point. I've only just bought my second one because my stash was an absolute mess and now I actually have it clear again, and you need to store so much stuff for this wipe because we're preparing for things to come. We can't get access to certain hideout modules because the traders aren't leveled up, for example, and so at some point you're going to be spending 1.8 million rubles on a lucky scav junk box, and that is just going to clear through the requirement that you need for Therapist completely. So try to avoid selling stuff to her and try to sell to the other traders, even if it means taking a bit of a write down, because it's going to save you a lot of time and hassle later. Sometimes you don't have any choice. Certain streamer items, Therapist is the only one that will take them, for example, but if you do have a choice, then I advise you look through the others. So next, let's look at Prapor level 2 because he's one of the ones that's open at the moment. You can actually get access to him. He's quite good to have at level 2, and also he buys quite a lot of useful things, such as guns, magazines, ammunition. One thing that he buys that a lot of the other traders won't is grenades, so if you have spare grenades, you can sell them to him. And he will also take medicines as well, which is kind of handy. He won't take food though, and he won't take most armors, so usually it's just weapon stuff you could be selling to Prapor, but make sure you're looking out for his barters too. The one extra thing that you can do with Prapor, Skier and Mechanic, and I'll mention that again later on, but you can repair guns. So with the repair, you have the choice of either Prapor, Skier or Mechanic. Most of the time it doesn't really matter which one you pick, but basically just use the one that you're going to try and target farm to get this money spend up. Now obviously if worse comes to worst and you're absolutely desperate to get to level 2 traders, you can clearly just go and buy things from him and sell them straight back to him. So you can buy AKS-74Us, for example, and then sell them straight back to him. The problem with this wipe is that hemorrhages money. It used to not be too bad because if you were buying before at 7 and selling at 4, you were basically getting 11 of overall rep, but you'd only be costing you 3. Now it's like you buy at 8 and you sell at 2. It gets you 10 rep, but it costs you 6. So the ratio is now very, very disproportionate. It costs you a lot more money to get the same amount of reputation, and it really does take it out of your bank balance. So I use this technique to get Prapor and Jaeger up. So I bought things from Jaeger and I sold them to Prapor because I had an imbalanced rep as well, so that ended up working, and it cost me 1 million rubles to get both of these traders up, which in this wipe, as you know, is actually a lot of money. So we want to avoid doing that if we can, but as a last case effort, it is possible to do that if you need to. So other than looking out for barters, there's not actually that many crazy things you can do with Prapor. As I said, look for kite gunpowders to turn into shrimps. So you can make these in the workbench. You can buy ammo off Jaeger. You can make kite gunpowders in the workbench level 1, and you can barter these with Prapor for the SR 1MP pistol and sell it back to him. So that's quite a good one. Nuts again for PM pistols. You find those all over the place. 2 spark plugs for a below-mo PSO. So rather than selling these items, try to turn them into other things first before you sell them, because you can double dip on the barter cost. Over onto Jaeger. Jaeger is a bit more annoying than Prapor because there's lots of things that he won't actually buy. So he won't buy most weapons, although he does buy lots of parts. So there's various things that he will buy, not muzzle brakes, but he will buy scopes. He will buy stocks, but he won't buy vertical foregrips. He's a little bit funny about what he will and won't take. And one of the surefire ones that he will take is barrels. So if you do need to just, wash stuff through him, you can go and buy shotgun barrels from himself and sell them back to him because they're one of the few items that he will actually buy and sell both things within his own trader stock. Unlike Prapor, he does buy food, which does make it a bit easier. You can sell him things like Tarkas, which are quite good. Condensed milk is a classic, and you can make condensed milk in the nutrition unit level 2 if you have that. I don't have it up yet because of various barter item requirements, but food is usually a good one. You could slowly tick him up with that, and he will also buy rigs as well. At level 2, he does have an awesome barter, which is this one, which is the hunting matches for a Tarzan. You can then sell it back, but obviously at level 1, you can't do this. He will also buy melee weapons as well. The only thing that you have to be a little bit careful of with the melee weapons is that a lot of the melee weapons, especially the knives, the brown handle and the black handle knives, as well as the bayonets, they're actually better off being used in barters with Peacekeeper, and we'll move on to those a little bit later. But before we do, I want to show you another trick on how you actually get barrels for Jaeger in the first place, and this is going to bridge into Mechanic, who we're going to talk about next as well. And the idea with this is if you go onto the flea market, you've probably been finding, if you've been lucky, euro stacks on scavs. Now, euros aren't used for really anything right now. There's hardly anything there. There's no weapons. There's a little bit of specialist equipment, which is these markers from Ragman. You could use your euros for that if you want some Ragman rep. Other than that, it's the items case and then these weapons parts. From the selection that we've got right now, they're basically all mechanic, except for this skier flashlight. What this means, though, is that you can go through the various weapons parts. This works for any of the traders, so you don't have to specifically do this with Jaeger, but with Jaeger, you can look at the barrels in particular, and you can just clear out all of these every reset and sell them to Jaeger. This will level up Mechanic and Jaeger at the same time, and it'll utilize the euros that you're not able to really use for anything else. The stuff that you need euros for, like solar power or whatever, are a million miles away in hardcore, so at this point, I wouldn't worry about it. So for example, we could buy the Glock 9x19 SAI threaded barrel, that's 122 euros. I do actually just have enough for that. So you buy that from him, and we'll go back to our traders, and we'll sell this to Jaeger, and that's going to sell back to him for 4,500. So slowly over time, that's going to get you Mechanic and Jaeger, and it's kind of for free because you have nothing else to use the euros for. Mechanic is another trader that you can repair with, obviously. You usually repair armors with Mechanic because he's the best, and that works well if you do actually want to level him up because he gives you the best repair. He will buy most of your gun stuff, weapons, magazines, ammunition, attachments, any of that kind of thing. The one thing he won't buy is grenades, and outside of that, he will buy some barter items, but it's a bit different to the other traders because it's mostly electronic stuff instead. So he won't buy hoses, for example, like Jaeger will, but he will buy energy-saving lamps and circuit boards and that kind of thing. So it's kind of in line with how you imagine Mechanic to be. Now, clearly, he's got some useful barters as well. You can go and trade things with lower value with him for higher value, like 2 salts to get a 9x19 suppressor, so you can buy that and sell it back to him, that kind of thing. The gas analyzer one is going to be really useful when we get to Skier 2 because CPU fans are plentiful, and each trader reset, you can buy a gas analyzer. Once you get 2 of them, you can get an RFB, and then you're going to be able to sell them to another trader. So look through, see what you've got that you don't need. Keep the drills, don't sell those, and you can try and do a few of these barters. Now, once you get to Mechanic 2, there's a little trick that I just tested yesterday on stream, which was this Bitcoin. So I managed to find a Tetris, and you get 1 other Tetris for doing the BTR questline. Green batteries are quite common this way, and I managed to basically get enough stuff for this particular barter. And what I did was I created myself a Bitcoin using this barter here. Now, there's an important concept with the cultist circle that we should look at, and that is this here. This is on the Tarkov wiki on the hideout page. So if we go down to this section down here, these are the unique crafts that you can do in the cultist circle. Some of them are quite rare, so things like bear figurines and that kind of stuff. The most common usage for this is doing some of the figurines to boss items. So if you need to do the killer quest or the Rishala quest where you need the pistol or the helmet, you could put a Rishala figurine in and get a TT pistol golden, or you could put a killer figurine in and get the killer helmet. So this allows you to hand these things into Jaeger by killing the boss but not taking the item, for example. It makes them a lot easier. But there's a whole bunch of other ones down here as well, which are kind of lower value, like Dunduk sport glasses goes to Axel parrots, and these things are fine in raid, by the way, so it's useful to remember what the outputs of these are, because this could be used for things like living high is not a crime, relaxation room key can turn into a bottle of moonshine, a soap for an all, stun grenades for a light bulb. So I tested this yesterday because some people were saying that it wasn't working. Bottle of water did turn into a fleece fabric. It only works once, so you can only do this once. This isn't forever. This literally works one time for your account, and then it doesn't work anymore, so you have one chance to do this. But the one that we're interested in particular for this is this one here, the physical Bitcoin to 2 Tetris and a green battery. And what this means is that you can put the Bitcoin into the cult circle once you've done the barter, and you get the green battery and the Tetris back which then means that you can then go back to Mechanic and barter it again next trader reset for another Bitcoin before selling it. So you basically get to double dip on the barter cost of the physical Bitcoin with Mechanic and boost his trader rep artificially because we've managed to turn it back into its kind of barter item components first before doing it second time. So that's how I've jumped up to 3.1 million. I think this ended up giving me an extra 600k spend or something by doing the barter, which is pretty good. In this wipe, there are other benefits to getting Mechanic 2, one of those being that you can actually upgrade the workbench to level 2. Is one of the few trader requirements that we're actually locked behind, Ragman 2 being another one of them. So you are quite incentivized to get to Mechanic. He's one that I probably would focus on if you can do, especially if you've got all that stuff ready to get Workbench 2 upgraded. So let's talk about Skier next. Skier has all sorts of things, but not that much stuff that you actually want to buy. I've been buying headsets from him, the M32s, because they just have less ambient than the GSSHs, but he doesn't have a great deal of things that you might want, unfortunately. So obviously keep an eye out for the different barters, you know, sausage for a Vepa KM, although you might want to keep these for Grizzlies. And in terms of what he will actually buy from you, he's a little bit like Prapor, except he won't take meds, he only takes stims, and he won't take food either. He will take guns, and he will take ammo and mags and that kind of thing, but he's a bit more funny about the meds and the food, so he's a bit more restrictive. He does buy rigs though, but the only issue with Skier is that he has a big write-down compared to the other traders. He buys things for quite a lot less from the others. He will buy this Bitcoin, for example, so he does buy high-value items too, but you can see the 609k I get from Skier. It's quite a lot different for the 686k I get from Therapist, and this is kind of where it's tricky because you think, well, I would quite like to sell this to Skier because once he's level 2, obviously I'm going to need more money spent towards level 3. Therapist isn't going to be a problem because I've already spent so much money on her already, partly just from meds, but mostly from the Scav junk box. So should I just sell this to Skier and get a 60k write down? It feels kind of rubbish to do so. Probably is the right answer. But again, if you really need to, you can always just buy guns from him and sell them back to him directly. It does cost money, but sometimes that's just the way it is. Next, we're going to get onto Peacekeeper. So Peacekeeper is probably the hardest trader because it is $33,000 that you require to spend with him. And this works out at somewhere around 5 million rubles, which is kind of insane. This is like double all the other trader requirements. This is by far the hardest one. And what makes matters worse is that normally in a regular wipe, you would just buy USD from Peacekeeper, but this wipe, you can't buy dollars from him. I don't know whether you're going to be able to at level 2, but at level 1, you certainly can't buy USD from him, which is really annoying. So that means you have to somehow raise dollars by selling him random stuff in order to actually buy things from him, but the buy price is so high, you have to sell 3 or 4 times the amount of stuff to Peacekeeper before you can buy anything from him. This is where his barters come in real handy. So he's got a couple of them that are relatively straightforward, and most of them are for knives. So you've got the MP5 one here, which is 1 bayonet and 2 brown handle knives. You've got the UMP one, which is 1 bayonet and 4 black handle knives. And then you've got the P226R, which is 4 black handle knives. And this one probably isn't worth it. We're going to focus mostly on these two. If you have enough CPUs and stuff to do Mechanics questline, then the M4 barter's not bad either. The MPX one for dog tags could be okay because it's based on quite a low level, but we're going to focus mainly on this MP5. So what you can do here is you can go to Fence, and you can go into the weapons category, and in melee weapons you can go and buy bayonets from him, and you can also buy the 2 brown handle knives that you need. And then you can jump back to Peacekeeper and you can go and purchase one of these MP5s. I've already bought one of these already, but you can see up here the dollar spend is going to jump from 10.9 probably to about 11.1, something like that. We'll just see what it does. Yeah, so that's $200 worth, which is actually quite a bit. I don't know the rounding on it exactly, but that is going to give us somewhere around sort of 30k-ish value, and then you can sell them back, technically speaking, although I'm probably not going to do this because it only sells back for 123. The other thing that you can do with this, which is what I've been doing, and you can buy MP5s from him as well using the money that you find for $486, what you can do is you can put these into the cultist circle. Most people are not using the cultist circle at the moment because they don't really have enough high value items, but because of some strange combination with how the trader prices are working and the various multipliers and things, it seems like you can get the 6-hour cultist circle out of 5 MP5s. I'm not sure exactly why this is right, because from my understanding on the maths, you had to basically put in 400k's worth of items on their base price, which is not the trader price, but it is somewhere between the trader price and the sale price as far as I understood it anyway. But even though that doesn't seem to really work, you do sometimes end up getting a 6-hour cultist circle, which is the one where it can give you a random hideout item that you need, or it can give you a quest item that you need, which is really useful. So rather than selling these back to Peacekeeper, I've actually been putting them through the cultist circle instead once I get to 5 MP5s and using them in there. Obviously that doesn't help you with the money spent, so if you don't want to do that, you don't care about the progression as much, you just need Peacekeeper, then obviously sell the guns back to him because that'll raise more dollars, which means you can then buy more items from him and so forth. Outside of this, Peacekeeper is the one who buys the info items. I'm keeping some of these because, again, you need quite a few for the hideout. You need flash drives and various other things, and they don't need to be found in raid. and I'm saving up some other things like the video cassette. I want to get a military flash drive, so I could turn this into a dog tags case via Jaeger. But if you are going to sell these things to him, these are probably the best. So go through safes, grab the stuff, put them in a secure container. You can sell slim diaries, you can sell SAS drives, SSDs, secure flash drives, tech manuals, Bake Easy cookbooks, these video cassettes, all of this kind of stuff, and Peacekeeper does actually pay quite a good price for them. So this is another decent way of doing it because they're normally quite dense value per slot. For example, these SSDs or the SAS drives, these come to something like 35, 45,000 rubles, something like that. So these are pretty good value per slot. Finally, we've got Ragman. I fully expect Ragman to probably be the final trader to become open because he dictates the flow of class 4 armors into the game. And right now, that's one of the things that is sort of sought after. And it's one of those things that's keeping the game in the sort of lower level of wipe. Ref notwithstanding, I've already talked about that in the past, so we're not going to cover that old ground here again. But Ragman, he clearly buys helmets, bags, rigs, that kind of thing. And so he is a bit tricky to level up because a lot of this stuff he just won't purchase from you. There's no ammo, no guns, no food, no meds, no grenades, nothing like that. So you really have to be trying with Ragman to get his level up. I've managed to get him to 1.3 of 2.2 right now. And this is one of the reasons why the Jaeger bar ends up coming in quite handy. The Splav Tarzan, you can buy it from Jaeger, get a bit of value with him, and then you can sell it back to Ragman, which is quite decent. Otherwise, you can start buying these max energies for the UN armor, and then you can sell them back to him. I've got 2 of these max energies at the moment. I don't really need them, so I can buy from him, and then I can sell it back to him for 17k if I don't actually want that piece of armor, which is pretty good, and that works quite well for the value spent. Likewise, with Packer armors, this is going to barter for 3 of these lower half masks. I'm saving up a few for Punisher, but sometimes if you go onto Fence, you can find the lower half masks very, very cheaply. They're about 5k each, and then you can just go and sell that back to Ragman as well to farm up the money spent. So that's the easiest way to do Ragman, although he is not the easiest trader because of the limited amount of things that he takes. Now, I guess we will touch on Ref very briefly. If you do have GP coins to spare, you could do stuff like buying grenade cases and selling them back to Ragman. I did actually go and calculate and see what I thought was the best value across Ref in terms of GP coins to rubles, and you could buy a grenade case for 104 GPs and sell that back to Ragman for about 250k. So that actually works out pretty nicely if you want to convert GPs into rubles, and it works for Ragman too, which is pretty good. The other thing you should look for is anything to do with crafting. I haven't gone and scoured Workbench 2 yet because I literally haven't found barely any drills. I've got 2 so far this entire wipe, so I'm unable to upgrade to Workbench 2. But there's a couple of them in here. You can see I'm doing a non-powered craft for kite gunpowders, which I'll turn into shrimps and then sell back to Prapor. But there's another one in here too, which is the round pliers. If you find these don't sell for very much to the traders, but you can convert these into round pliers and basically double their value in the hideout. So that's a good one to look out for. Once you get into nutrition unit level 2, you will be able to make condensed milks, which that's a sugar and a milk, and that amplifies the value up to about 48,000 rubles, which is pretty decent. You can make max energies in here if you want to do the Ragman barter. Then it's also worthwhile going and looking through on the lavatory to just see if there's anything that you can craft in here to then hand it to the traders or sell back. I don't think anything at level 1 has a particularly high price, but at level 2 that might be different, but I haven't scoured through that list yet. So if you do have any other tips for anybody, do put those down in the comments. This is more of a video to just like collect things together. I've tried to put as many of the ones that I've bumped into and talked about with chat in this video as well, but I'm certain I've probably missed quite a few that are really, really handy. So if there's something you've been doing that's been allowing you to level up the traders really easily, maybe it's going on Fence and looking for certain items and selling them off to other traders, whether it's doing specific barters and crafts and certain chains of things, then put them down, let everybody know, let everybody get through this wipe a bit more easily than we have been already. So as usual, big shout out to all my patrons, and as always, have fun in your raids.